I'm sad to see Congressman Hanna go. Regardless of how you feel about him, I think Congressman Hanna has been a very effective congressman for our area. He's someone that you want to see more of in Washington, D.C. People who aren't necessarily concerned about party line and who want to work together to get things done. And I can say in my 4 years that I've been in office, I've been able to work pretty well with the congressman and his staff, and he's done a good job representing the constituents of the area. And I think that's one of the things that's really the most important part of any legislative job, is being able to respond to your constituents when they call with an issue, to get back to them and do your best to try and help work through that issue. And he's done a very effective job at that. As far as myself, it's something that I'm
Come on, Anthony. Come on, don't hesitate.
No, it's something. It's something I'm definitely considering, but it's not something that I take very lightly. This is a big decision in anyone's career, and the factors that weigh heavily on my decision are first and foremost my family. I have 2 young children right now. My wife works full time, so I want to be sure that if it's something I do, that I'm able to balance both the demands of a congressional seat and also the being there for your family and being an active and involved parent in your children's lives. That's the most important thing, and ultimately what's going to decide if I run or not.
That's why Richard Hanna's getting out. One of the main reasons.
That's
obviously.
why he's getting out. And I've talked to Congressman Hanna. I've talked to former Congressman Arcuri. I've talked to former Congressman Bohlert. There's a number of people that I want to talk to before I make this decision. I don't plan on dragging this thing out. I want to make a decision in the near future. So, if there's others that are interested in running, they can do so. But I'll make a decision pretty soon. But it's nice that we're going into a holiday weekend, because this can be a lot of time with family, and you can actually sit down and have some of these discussions. So that's number one. Number two, the number two issue that weighs on my mind is, I'm in this job to get things done. That's why I ran for office in the first place. And, I'm not sure yet where I can be more effective, if I can be more effective on the state level or on the federal level. And that's something that I'll have to work through over the next couple days and week or so to decide where I think I can be most effective. I think in the last 4 years, I've been able to work very well with other elected officials in this area to get things done in this region. And I think for the first time in a long time, things are starting to move in the right direction in the Mohawk Valley, and I'm proud of that, compared to where we were 4 or 5 years ago when the economy wasn't so good in the region. So I want to get things done. I want solutions, and those two things are going to be weighing heavily on my mind over the next few weeks as I try to work through this.
You said your decision as you think about it over the next few days and week. I did pick up on that, so I'll hold you to that.
But then I said weeks.
But
the Congress, they're away from home, I think, about 4 days a week, aren't they? Leave Monday, come back Thursday night, generally.
Typically,
and for how many weeks? For about 40 weeks a year or so?
It goes all year long. There's some breaks in there. They get the month of August off. There's other breaks around the holidays, and some other. Usually, you're home. You're not in Washington. You're there 3 weeks out of the month. Usually, home a week. It's a very big district. This district, the 22nd district, is a very large area to cover. So I've talked to a number of congressional members in the last week or so from other parts of the country who have families and trying to work through the demands of being in Congress, but also balancing the home life. There's a few others I'm still talking to. One of the flattering things is that there's been a number of people that have reached out to me to say we're interested in you considering this, and when some folks do that, you have to consider it. It's a very important job. Being a member of Congress, I think, is a privilege. It doesn't happen to everybody, and when you're asked to consider it, I think you got to really factor those decisions in.
It's interesting. How many days a week are you away from home now with
in the Assembly? So typically, the Assembly meets between January and beginning of July, end of June. So you're there, in the beginning, you're there a couple days a week, and then as you're around budget time in March and April, you could be there 3-4 days a week, and then it kind of goes back down to around 3 days a week, and then towards June, in the end of session, you're there a lot more because you're trying to pass legislation, so you're there. It's typically you'll be there 4 or 5 days a week. Depends.
Just out of curiosity, that's considered a part-time job.
It is.
Right,
Yep.
what you're doing now. Yet
Yep.
you have a number of full-time staff members.
You're right.
Do you think that the job should be full-time as an assembly person or a state senator with the amount of work that's involved in that today?
You know, I think it depends. For me, I'm able to balance right now the assembly job, but also still being able to practice somewhat as a lawyer. Not as much as I did in the past. I don't have any clients anymore that I represent. I do more backup work for some of the other lawyers in the office. So, you know, I think it can be done on a part-time basis, but let's face it, it's a full-time job. When you're there in Albany 6 months of the year, you're basically committed to that, and it's very hard to have another position at that point in time. And even when you're not in Albany, my schedule is packed every day with meetings or events with whatever organization may be wanting you to come to one of their events.
Going to Israel,
but also the constituent work that never ends.
People don't realize that with all these offices, your office, state senator, and the congressman's office, they have constituent services, and they help people cut through the red tape. And I can tell you, personal experience, that they have helped me when I have clients who have issues. Your offices, and yours and Richard Hanna's office and Sherwood Bollert before, they'll help you cut through a lot of the red tape because they'll tell us we have a congressional line. Yeah. We can get through quicker than you can. One other question. Do you think if your position that you have now and the Senate were full-time, would that affect the level of corruption that exists within that body? Do you think? I know it's hard to answer that question.
I really don't. I really
don't. Think it would matter?
I think that bad people are going to commit bad acts no matter what. And I'm not sure if some of the issues that have popped up in the last few years could have been prevented by legislators being there full-time or not having outside income. I think there are people that are going to commit these acts, and the justice system is going to do its work and go after these folks. There are things that we should and can be doing to try and make the system even better, to try and prevent further abuses, and I support a number of those measures. But ultimately, no matter how many laws you pass, if someone is intent on doing wrongdoing, they're going to find a way to do it. And I think that's one of the things that is being lost right now in a lot of the discussion about outside income and whether or not you make it a full-time legislature or not.
It's interesting you're talking about balancing family life with your political life, and I know Paul Ryan, who recently took the job as Speaker of the House there, he wrestled with that for a while because he lives in Wisconsin. He was able to get some sort of special deal where they're allowing him to spend more time in Wisconsin as opposed to in Washington, D.C. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, well, I think he told his delegation that, at least from the reports, that, look, I have young children. Mm-hmm. If you look at the previous Speaker of the House, he was on the road pretty much all year long, fundraising, doing events around the country for congressional members, and that sometimes is the nature of the beast. And Paul Ryan, I think, said that, look, I have a commitment, and I want to be a good dad, and there's things I can't do. So if you want me to be the Speaker, it's going to be on my terms.
Would you have any would you have that same sort of leeway?
Well, I don't think I carry as much clout as Paul Ryan does. But look, I tell people now, because of my children and my family life and my wife, there's things that I'm not going to do. I cannot. If I had to be, if I wanted to be, I could be out every single night of the week and all weekend long going to different events around the area. And I do tell people sometimes, I can't make it. I'm sorry, but I do need to be there for my family, so I can't make certain events, or I can send a staff member to one of those events if I'm not able to make it. So there are events that I have to say no, I can't go to, and it's because I want to be there for my children. I do want to see the soccer games. I do want to go skiing. I do want to do those things with my kids. I think that's an important part of being a dad.
Anthony, if you were in the federal legislature, what would be your number one issue that you would like to see addressed on the national level? Right, as you're sitting here now, I know you're contemplating whether to get into it or not, but what would be the number one issue you think needs to be addressed?
Yeah, I think I'll talk generally first, and specifically about Mark's question. With regards to the district itself, it is a district, and that's why it's been looked at now nationally as one of those districts that could be a toss-up.
An important seat. Yeah.
And it's a very important seat for both parties, but it's also a seat that I think has gone back and forth and really splits down the middle of the road when you look at the makeup of the district. And the people in the district, I think, are going to want someone who is generally moderate, who is able to work on both sides of the aisle to get things done, maybe not as concerned about some of the national issues, but really getting things done and working on the constituent issues. Ultimately, the person that's going to be elected is, and what's going to come down to in this race or any other race for that matter is, who has the best character. Character is a very important trait when running for office, and people are going to ask themselves, who am I comfortable representing my interests in Washington, D.C.? And it's the same on the state level, in Albany or on the local level. Character is a very important thing, and people who are going to present their ideas and present their plans are not going to resort to attacks or name-calling and this kind of stuff you're seeing right now on the national level. That's not something that's going to play very well in this district, I don't think. But more specifically regarding Mark's question, there's so many issues. I mean, it's hard to pick one issue that I think is such an important issue on the national level. But I'll tell you, just from my dealings here locally and having such a large veterans population in our region, I think that's one issue that the federal government is failing right now because of the unwillingness of both parties to really put aside some differences and get things done. Veterans are faced with all kinds of new illnesses that the VA, frankly, is not equipped to handling. Whether it's post-traumatic stress disorder or some of the conditions that the servicemen and women that are coming home from Iraq and Afghanistan are facing, the VA is just not equipped to handle these issues. And we have to come up with a better mechanism to try and make sure that these men and women are receiving the treatment they deserve, whether it's in the VA or in a private health care facility. It shouldn't matter. What should matter is getting them the services they need right now, not waiting 6 months or a year to try and get services. I think there's nothing more appalling than treating some of our veterans the way they're being treated right now when they have to wait so long to get services. They didn't wait for us when we asked them to go over to these foreign lands to fight on our behalf. They answered the call, and we should answer the call when they return home.
Great
and that's
point.
one thing that we're not doing right now, and it's unfortunate. We've made mistakes in the past when you look at how the country treated Vietnam veterans when they returned home. The worst thing we could do is try and repeat those mistakes again now, and I think that by not providing medical treatment to our veterans who are suffering is appalling, and it's something that needs to be corrected right away.
Interesting. We also talked about the casino fight yesterday, the front page news, and I know this is something that Claudia Tenney had brought up on the show yesterday. She was critical of some politicians in this area siding with one side versus the other in terms of the casinos, and I know, Mark, you brought this up earlier on the show as well. I don't know how you feel about that, but Mark, the point you made I thought was very valid, which was counter to what Claudia Tenney was saying, where the tax situation should be alleviated, or there should be some sort of consideration given to the casino because of all the jobs they've brought in, whereas she focused on the fact that they get to go tax-free or whatever. I don't know if you have a feeling on that.
Well, I think regardless of how you feel about the Oneidas, the casino, there was a deal that was done between the state of New York and the Oneidas, which has been signed into law, has withstand court challenges, and is now the law of the land. And what it basically says is that the county is going to be receiving almost $15 million a year based on the revenue that is generated from the casino. That's something that's going to benefit everyone in this county. The second thing you have to look at is the jobs. Regardless, again, how you feel about the Oneidas, and some people just can't seem to put aside their hatred for the Oneidas, but regardless of that, there's 4,000 people working at the casino. There's another 2,500 people employed through vendors that serve the casino. Vendors in this area. Mm-hmm. The original intent of the legislation permitting casino gambling was that we're going to do it in areas of the state that have been traditionally economically depressed, and that hopefully casino gaming can create some jobs in those regions and not compete against the other casinos. You look at a place like Atlantic City, where the casinos have basically cannibalized each other, mm-hmm. where they're now can't exist, And that's what we're headed towards here. By putting a casino out just past Syracuse is going to directly compete with the casinos here in our region, whether it's Vernon Downs or the Turning Stone. That means a loss of jobs in our area. It's not about competition. It's about trying to create opportunities in regions of the state that are suffering. And right now, because that Lago Casino has been approved, it's going to directly compete with the jobs that we have in our region. So let's put aside our differences and really focus on what matters the most, making sure that people are gainfully employed in our county.
So do you believe that it was an unlawful award? I think that was the quote from the Oneidas there, that the awarding of the casino licenses to places like Lago was unlawful.
I do. I think, first of all, the intent of the legislation said, we're going to create new jobs, not compete with existing gaming facilities in the state. There has to be local buy-in. The locals in that region have to want a casino. Both of those things have been violated because the studies that have been done by Lago themselves have shown that much of their business is going to come from this area and compete with the Turning Stone Casino for those jobs.
Right.
The other thing is there's tremendous opposition in that area. You talk about the Finger Lakes, Racino, people in that local community who are opposed to having a casino in that region. But it seems like politics has taken over here, and those initial concerns are not being addressed.
Yeah.
I've seen lots of great card tricks in my time, okay? But shuffling, a few thousand jobs from one region of the state to another region of the state is more like a disappearing act. It's not economic development. It's not the way things should be done. And unfortunately, the Gaming Commission made a great mistake here.
Yeah, I think the process overall itself, and you don't have to say it, I'll say it, I think it stinks. But one of the other things that Claudia did bring up, and I know, some folks text messaging some questions and asking us to ask some of the questions. She mentioned yesterday at the beginning of her interview the fact that she has worked well with other elected officials. Do you feel that you've had a good working relationship with our Assemblywoman?
I don't. I've had a better working relationship with other people in the region, whether it's Senator Griffo, whether it's the county executive or the mayors in the cities or local elected officials. I'm interested in getting things done, and I'll work with anyone who wants to get things done. I'm not going to work with people who are interested in just seeing their name in the news or saying no to everything. I'm going to work with people who actually want to get things done, and I've been able to do that by working with Senator Griffo, by working with the county executive, and I think the area has benefited by that. Personally, I get along very well with Assemblywoman Tenney, and she may have a different style of going about things than I do, but ultimately I want to get things done and try and find solutions for our area, and whoever wants to do that to help move the area forward, that's someone I want to work with.
Can I ask you another question on the national level?
Sure.
This is something that, particularly where we live, I think it's a very important issue. It's been talked about a lot in the national, in the presidential race. That is immigration.
Sure.
And I'll just tell you, I'll share my feelings. I'm really troubled when I hear people say, I would block any path to citizenship. I mean, there's people in this community, and there's people all over this country who have come here legally. They didn't crash the borders, but they overstayed their visas, and they've made a life here. They have families. They work. They support their families. You can't just tear people away from their families like he talks about. We're going to deport 10 million people and let them come back in legal. It's inhumane to do that. That's my opinion. I don't want to affect what you're going to say.
Logistically, can you imagine the pictures on TV of
I can't.
Of soldiers going into homes or whoever, immigration officials going into homes and ripping families apart?
I've said
do you think the country's going to stand for that?
No, that would be off. But I just wanted you to share your feelings with us on immigration, and particularly on a path to citizenship for people who have overstayed their legal right to be here, which is what most of the illegal immigrants are. They're not border crashers. Right. Sealing the border is not going to prevent what we have now. We have people who just overstayed.
Right.
Would you, if you mind sharing your feelings with us on that? It's an important issue, particularly for people in our area, because we have such a big immigrant population.
Sure.
And it's a national issue. It's not a state issue.
It's a national issue, but I think our area can be looked upon as kind of a model of how integrating refugees and new immigrants to the country has worked out. You know, this area has had a very active refugee center over the last 30 years that has brought individuals in from war-torn areas and helped those individuals gain employment, help them to buy businesses, open businesses, renovate areas of the city of Utica that have traditionally long been neglected. So I think that there is a real economic benefit to not only the country but the state for allowing immigrants into this country and not ripping families apart.
What about path to citizenship for those who are here, have overstayed? They're here illegally. What about a path to citizenship for them?
If they are people who are contributing to the tax base, they are showing that they want to become U.S. citizens, that they are willing to work through any of the violations that they've made in the past and have been here for a number of years, I think there should be a pathway for those people to become citizens. Obviously, if there's people here who are committing crimes, not contributing to the economy, then we have to look at that and make a determination as to how you handle those folks. But for people that have been here for a number of years, that have started families, are working, contributing, paying taxes, how do you say no? We're just going to rip them apart and send them to a country many of them don't even know anymore. And same thing with the families. For the children, you see this a lot in debates about the children who they were brought here at a very young age and have lived here all their life, know no other country, and just want to succeed just like any other American wants to succeed. How can you just say to that child who's now 18, could be the best student in their high school, no, you have to go back to a country you've never known?
Some of them don't even realize they're not legal because they came at such an early age until they need to get their birth certificate for something later on, and they find out they're not actually citizens. They thought they were.
My name is misspelled on my birth certificate, by the way. My last name is misspelled.
You'll probably be deported to some country. Who knows?
Figuring everything out here.
Hopefully they don't come after us. Hey, Anthony, thanks for stopping in. Have a great holiday. Good luck with the wrapping of the gifts there.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
I'm the worst rapper in the whole world.
Go ahead, bust it out. Oh, you meant okay.
Great, not that kind of rapper.
Thanks. Have a great holiday.
Merry Christmas.
You too.